Wow, what a game. That was a journey. I don't know about you, but I'm literally coming down off of the high of that last, whatever it was, 4 or 5 minutes of a game. I mean, that is how you finish out a game. I don't think that Fox, that NBC, that the USFL could have asked for a better ending to a game. A game won within the last few seconds on a quarterback run to go ahead and win the game outright with pretty much, 18 seconds left to go in the game. It was fantastic. It had everything that you want in a football game. Listen, I'm getting ahead of myself. These are just my initial reactions. This is just my reaction to, game one of week one. We'll go through, do a breakdown of things as the week goes on. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of everything. But this, I'm just giving you my initial thoughts and reactions. Now, with having a family Easter dinner, I didn't really get to watch the whole story leading up into it. I caught portions of it, and it was kind of cool the way they put it together. Yes, it wasn't narrated, and it flowed just fine from the bits and pieces that I saw. I'll go back and rewatch it. I've got it taped to watch it later, but I was able to get into the game. And the game, they had some glitches and some stuff to start things out with. So from there, some of the cameras were, the audio was off, at least for me, but then it would get back on when they would switch camera angles. That was a little frustrating. The drone thing was kind of cool, but you could see that it wasn't, the color science of it, and you could see that it would glitchy every now and again, especially the helmet cam was glitchy with it. But those are hiccups and things when you're trying out new things with it. I thought that was, fine. The beginning of the game leading up into the game, I thought it was cool with all the, the pageantry of everything. It was neat to see. It was kind of tough, though, because people were still getting into their seats. So as the game went on, you actually saw that, the stadium wasn't as empty as what it kind of made out to be earlier on in the game. I would say it was probably 60 to 70% of the seats that they sold were filled. You could tell, the corners, they had those covered up, but pretty much everywhere else, the one side was almost completely packed. The other side was about half packed. And so were the end zones. So like I say, it's about 60 to 70% full, which was pretty cool. And that crowd got pretty ruckus as the game went on. But, you could tell that they were feeling things out. They were kind of getting things, going with it. Now, I did watch the Fox broadcast, so I will put that out there. Kurt Menefee, Joel Klatt did a fantastic job. I thought Brock Heward did great there on the sidelines. Collinsworth and Garrett, they did their jobs well. They did what they needed to do. They had way too much of the stadium in the beginning of it. It was just kind of annoying, the echo, hearing it back and forth with that. But really, all in all, it was a good presentation. Once they actually got into the football and they knew when things mattered, they tried to give us the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I've said this before, especially with the XFL, some of the coaches and stuff, it's just too much hearing all of these players talking and the coaches talking all at once, and then, the announcers going, and then the crowd noise. It's just pick a few things, pick the announcers in the crowd, and I'm okay with that. Give me the coaches for, sometimes here and there. They'll get it figured out as they go with it. It's a cool thing to give us the behind the scenes, but sometimes it just gets to be a bit much, and it takes away from, trying to watch the game and trying to figure out what's going on there. I do like, though, giving us the insider ball with it, as we've been getting with these type of leagues and this type of stuff. This is just a really cool presentation. And, I did watch some of the, the spring league, stuff. And this really, I feel like this was a step above that. I really feel like this was kind of on par with, some of our better games in the XFL. You got to see everything in this game. And I mean, it was everything. It started out with a bang, and I thought, shoot, are we going to have a shootout with this game, the whole game? And, after the initial surge of everything, it settled down. And so, you got to see that, and you got to see that, the offenses aren't just, sinking quite yet. Luani, oh my gosh, you've got some studs now that we're talking about on defense, and I loved seeing Nate Holley's name get called the fumble recovery and also the big tackle loss. Scooby Wright got in there, had some big hits. You got to hear some of these names. You got to, we've got guys now to talk about, to really look at guys flying around the ball. You had the, Magoo, it kind of reminded me of Aaron Murray, came out slinging, looking good. And then, it looks like he got hurt and things just went downhill from there. Part of it you're looking at is, okay, is this guy blaming his, issues on equipment? Then it's like they did an x-ray and it looks like he's going to be done. He's going to be out. And it looks like he's lost his job. So right there, that's quarterback number one for me. And I don't know the situation, with Johnson and Perez. Perez started the game, and I thought that Johnson was going to start the game the way that all the information was coming out, and they went back and forth the whole game. But when the game was on the line, they put it in Johnson's hands. So, I don't know. Can I chalk that up to 2 starters now? Maybe give me 1.5 to where, I can get over that hump. I don't know with it. But Smith, my gosh, Smith came in and, had to take over for Magoo and did a fantastic job there. Now, he needed to settle down, but once the reins were given over to him and we knew that Magoo wasn't coming back in, he settled down and got those guys into place where they needed to be. They figured out the game. And I think if you give him the starter reps come week 2, I think he'll be just fine. And he's going to be an interesting guy, going forward. The reality of it is when you look at this game, Smith, he went 0 for 6, I think, to start out. And the guy ended up, 11 for 21. So if you take those first 6 away, granted, they're part of his stats. But after he settles down and starts playing, the guy is 11 for 15 for 156 yards. And remember, he pretty much didn't play, a quarter and a half, something like that, I think, a touchdown. And, the guy's got a decent quarterback rating. And Magoo was 5 for 10. He had the pick, and it was a bad thrown ball. He should have never thrown the ball, regardless of whether it be, issues with his gloves or not. And he did have that fumble with it, and they were, alluding to that. But, with it, you had, I told you that I thought that, one of these guys was going to raise up, and you had Mitchell at the end of the game. He kind of became the go-to guy for Smith. Smith hit him when he needed to. Ended up with 5 catches for 96 yards and 100 yards. And actually, talking about guys coming out and having a coming out party. Looking at this, you had Satterfield. I told you we were going to get some wide receivers that were going to, pull themselves above the rest. 5 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. And he had that touchdown at the beginning of the game. And really, he made some great catches being contested in this game. And I thought that was, really huge for them. I mean, you got to see a defensive fight there in the middle of the game where the defenses were getting the better of the offenses. Now, there was a stint there where the offenses just looked terrible, but there was also a stint where there was just good defenses. We got to see some sacks with it. And then we got to see some good ground and pound from the Generals. I mean, they really took it over with Johnson, coming in there. And at the end, his stats, I think before he started throwing Hail Marys there at the end of the game, I think he was like 2 for 4, going in there. I mean, all of his passes and stuff were pretty safe with it, but he had 12 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown, which is huge. Victor had 66 yards, averaging over 4 yards a carry. So did Williams. I was actually really impressed with Williams. Williams has had a tendency in the past in other leagues to, when he's not out in the open, have a hard time getting extra yards after the hit, yards and after contact. And I think he did a really good job with that tonight. I was actually really, really impressed with that. And, all in all, after things settled down and the guys got the jitters down, this game actually played really, really good. It wasn't as fast time-wise as what I thought it would be. It was still kind of more NFL paced in the sense that the game wasn't over as fast as what I thought it would be. I loved the fact of after within the last 2 minutes of the half that you get that the clock stops on the first down. I love that. I think that it's fair. The officiating crew, fantastic job. I really do think that they did a really good job with it. There might be, a couple of things here and there that I might have changed. But listen, the personal foul thing, confirming that right away, doing that, I thought that was good. I think that the guys wanted, in the booth, wanted to kind of get into the pageantry of that and get in with Mike Pereira. But, the game was still going on, so they just moved on with it, never got another chance with it. And that's just goes off to how well that the officiated this game. I really didn't think that there was anything egregious that they missed, and I really don't think that there was, any really holdings or anything like that. Actually, I was pretty impressed with the false starts on these teams. Have only really been together for about 3 weeks, and to have less of those type of penalties, those mental mistake, procedural things. You usually see a lot more of that, and especially with such a short turnaround, and you didn't have that. I mean, it was fun down to the wire, and the Stallions and Smith, having the composure that he did to take that to the end of the game. I mean, think about this. It's the inaugural game of the USFL. Everybody's excited. You come out swinging, firing. The defenses, turn things up. Close game, the whole game. It was within 7 points, I think, the whole game. And the Stallions never led until they scored the final touchdown of the game and went up. If you're keeping track of things, the over-under went over, and the Stallions, were giving up 2.5 points, and they won by 4. So, if you picked the Stallions and you picked the over, you got it. Right here, yep, this guy, I got it. But all in all, that was just it's what you wanted. It kept people watching. It kept people looking at the game. You had a backup quarterback come into the game, take over the game, and win the game. That Cinderella story type of a thing. And it just seemed to really it was one of those things where it's like, am I watching a real football game, or is this like a Hollywood movie that they just turned on for all of us to watch so that they could get, really good ratings? And that'll be the interesting thing for me, is to see the overnight ratings for Fox and NBC on this game, to see how many people really did watch it. Now, one thing that they will be hindered, like I had a, family Easter dinner, we'll see how the ratings are affected by the holiday weekend and people, doing holiday events and having activities and that type of a thing. But yeah, all in all, I mean, and when you look at it, you go down the stat line. So both teams had one had 12 drives, the other one had 11 drives. Total plays though for the Generals, 73. That's a lot of plays. 54, not too bad for the Stallions. Total yards, over 400 yards for the Generals, 277, which is presentable for the Stallions. And once they figured things out in the second half, things really turned around. Both teams averaged over 5 yards a play. The thing that the Generals, I think, are going to come back and they're going to say is that, their coach is going to say, hey, we had missed opportunities where we missed field goals and, we left points on the board, which they definitely did. But, you got to give the Stallions their due. They did a fantastic job. And you do feel good for Rose that, to go up, he hit that field goal after missing, a 47-yarder, which you kind of hook. But when, you start getting those longer ones, just slightly off gets to be further off. And he missed that chip shot. To see, for him to come back and hit it true, his coach to have faith in him, that was good. To get to see that. Both teams had a turnover. You had the fumble recovered. I think Scooby Wright knocked it out of Perez's hand, and Holly had the recover, and Luani, good night, was like 8. Well, look at it here real quick for Luani. Luani had a huge night on defense. I mean, we're going to be talking about this guy. 8 tackles, solo tackles, a tackle for a loss, an interception. I mean, this guy was all over the field causing, just havoc everywhere and making some open field tackles and stuff like that. He's going to get himself he's not going to be back in the USFL next year. He's going to be getting himself some trying on some NFL squads, which it sounded like he's had, playing time already in NFL teams. But man, the guy looked sharp. Yeah, not much more I can say about it. I am thrilled. I started to get worried in the second quarter of like, oh Lord, here we go. This is getting rough. And actually, I thought, oh no, the Generals are going to take this thing over. But the Stallions defense, held but didn't break. Kept their team in it once they figured things out with the second string quarterback after their first quarterback went down. I would imagine, though, that Smith is probably going to be the guy going forward here. The offense just runs so much better with him in there. And like I said, I give him a week of practice and things will be just fine. He's, he knows that offense in and out. He's, Holtz was his coach in college. So things will go fairly smoothly for them. And I see them actually probably now having probably a better ceiling than what they did with Magoo, having him in there. He just needs to, settle down for the next game and they'll be all right. But yeah, fantastic. Perez not getting the opportunity at the end to finish out the game. The guy, fantastic. I mean, look at it, 13 for 18, 72, percent completion rating, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. Quarterback rating 175. The guy played a really good game. It just thinks that he's sharing reps with Johnson, but you see why he is. Johnson is just a dynamic guy, and really, you kind of hope that Johnson can get that that throwing figured out, because if he can become a guy who can really analyze the field and sling the ball around the field with his feet. Oh my gosh. I mean, the sky's the limit on this Generals team. So all in all, it was a great night. It was a success for the USFL. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and we don't need to. It did what it needed to do. It was awesome. It was fantastic. And actually it probably went above all of our expectations with it. It'll be interesting to see now, after we've had the game, how it's, covered, presented throughout the coming week, and those TV ratings. We'll have to see where they fall, especially the overnights tomorrow. All right, guys, that's it. As always, I'm going to know your thoughts down in the comment section, and we'll go from there. All right. I'm almost forgetting. Like I said, I'm so excited. I'm forgetting how to finish out my own videos. All right, guys, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.